Nobody in Dawson thought anyone would touch the cut Parker Schnabel walked away from mid-season, the one he publicly branded geologically unstable before turning his back on it for good. In the Yukon, that kind of verdict is basically a grave marker. If Parker bails, the logic is simple. The ground is cursed, the ground is dead, or the ground is waiting to swallow the next fool who tries. So when Rick Ness rolled back into town with a skeleton crew and a chip on his shoulder, nobody expected his first stop to be that pit. He climbed out of his truck, walked to the edge, and stared down into the half-collapsed walls and frozen mud shelves Parker had left behind. He didn't say a word, just stood there, reading the ground like it was hiding something it never told Parker. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, because this story is about to flip everything you thought you knew about Gold Rush. Local miners spotted Rick at the edge of the pit, and the whisper started immediately, long before a single engine turned over. He's blowing his comeback on a graveyard. Nothing down there but trouble. Everyone agreed on one thing. Rick was making the worst bet at the worst possible time. But Rick wasn't listening. He had something they didn't. Fresh drone data from a friend who owed him a favor. Those scans showed something off. Thin hairline fractures crawling through the permafrost beneath Parker's old cut. Not the normal freeze-thaw patterns everyone was used to. These looked disturbed, shifted, like something had moved the ground from below. Rick didn't know what it meant yet, but he knew what to do. He staked the claim anyway, tossed the paperwork onto the truck dash, and said quietly, to nobody in particular, Parker walked away too soon. The next morning, he started by stripping out Parker's junk pile. Old hoses split open from years of use. Bent track pads tossed in the mud. A fuel tank so battered it would never hold diesel again. Buried under a collapsed pallet, something caught his eye. A crumpled, sun-faded survey map scrawled over with blue grease pencil. It was definitely from Parker's season. Same layout, same features. But it wasn't the map Rick had ever seen on TV or in Parker's usual paperwork. This one had a hand-drawn circle over a narrow eastern channel, with 2 words scratched next to it. Test later. But that area had never been drilled, never mentioned, never worked. Rick spread the map over the hood of his loader and just stared. Then he called his geologist over. The guy scanned the numbers along the margins and immediately frowned. These readings didn't match Parker's final data sets, at all. Parker's official logs showed dead ground beyond a certain line, nothing worth chasing. But this map was hinting at a deeper pay stream, a second channel further down that must have been written off based on shallow tests that never lined up with the deeper measurements. For the first time, Rick let a dangerous thought creep in. What if Parker's scanners lied? What if someone misread the signatures and tagged perfectly good ground as worthless? It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And if it happened here, the richest untouched pay channel on the entire claim might still be sitting right under their boots. Rick kept his mouth shut, but his eyes gave him away. He folded the map, slid it into a plastic sleeve like it was gold itself, and told the crew to get the excavator ready. Now the question wasn't, is there gold? The question was, can we reach it before anyone else figures out what we found? The first test pit was small, just enough to line up with the map. The excavator bit into the frozen ground, scooped a bucket, and dumped it into the plant. Rick leaned over the shaker as the first wash ran through. What came out made his stomach tighten. This wasn't the light, fine drift gold Parker had been pulling all season. The mats were catching heavy, dark, coarse material. The kind that forms deep under ancient slides, buried under decades of frozen overburden. The geologist ran the sample numbers twice, then a third time, 3 times higher than Parker's best readings. Nobody said a word. No cheering, no celebration. Just a quiet, stunned silence. Because this wasn't a leftover pocket Parker missed on the edge of his cut. This was proof. Something big was lying under a layer Parker never reached, ground that had slid long before he ever fired up a machine there. And then came the real punch. The pay layer they'd hit sat under a collapsed slide zone, buried beneath old overburden that would have blocked every one of Parker's earlier tests. His drills and scans never saw it because the gold was sealed under a natural lid of frozen debris. Rick had punched through it by accident on his very first test. He didn't wait for daylight, he didn't wait for investors, he didn't wait for more lab results. He ordered the pit expanded, wider, deeper. Strip everything Parker left behind. If the map was right, this wasn't just a good sign. This was the beginning of something Parker had walked away from without ever knowing what slept underneath. As the machines fired up and steel teeth chewed back into Parker's old cut, Rick's real fear wasn't whether there was gold. It was whether they could keep any of this quiet long enough to find out how much. They didn't even finish the first widened section before the ground answered. About 15 feet down, the excavator bucket hit something and stopped cold. The operator tried again. Same dead stop. Not the bounce of rock or the crunch of frozen gravel. Something solid, smooth, shaped. He got on the radio immediately. Rick rolled up, still half tired, expecting a layer of hardpan or bedrock. but one look at the exposed edges in the ice and he knew this wasn't natural. There were straight lines. They pulled in heaters and thaw rigs, slowly peeling back ice and frozen mud until the shape finally emerged. Old timber cribbing. The kind Yukon miners used almost 100 years ago when they dug hand-cut drift tunnels under the permafrost. Nobody expected anything like that under one of Parker's modern cuts. The beams were splintered and half-eaten by ice, but there was no doubt. They were man-made. Someone had been working this ground long before Parker ever set eyes on it, and they'd quit too soon. Rick dropped to a knee beside the exposed timber, brushing frost away from the joints. The cribbing angling downward told him everything he needed to know. Collapsed drift shaft. And miners didn't build drift shafts under frozen ground unless they were chasing something they believed was worth risking their lives for. In the Yukon, that usually means one thing. A promising pay channel they just couldn't reach with the gear of their day. They cleared more overburden, revealing the tunnel mouth, sealed tight by decades of slides. Every foot they opened made the situation stranger. The drift wasn't on any map. Parker's geological reports had nothing about historic workings. Either he never scanned deep enough, or the drift was buried for so long that the sensors read it as just more ice and frozen ground. Now that it was exposed, one thing was obvious. Someone had gotten close to something huge, and the Earth had shut them down before they finished. Every safety warning said the same thing. Reinforce it first. Take your time. Rick ignored them. Once word got out that they'd found cribbing under a working claim, half the valley would show up with offers, questions, or outright trouble. He ducked under the timbers and stepped into the frozen shaft. His breath echoed off tight, icy walls. The air tasted stale and metallic. Broken carbide lamp pieces lay scattered across the floor. Rusted tools leaned against the walls. A crushed tin mug sat right where someone had left it 70 or 80 years ago. It felt like walking into a paused moment from another season. Just one that never resumed. At the far end of the drift, his headlamp caught something the old-timers never reached. A diagonal streak of black sand-packed gravel slicing through the wall. Dense, heavy, untouched. Black sand veins are always worth attention. But this one was different. It was layered so rich it seemed to glint even without water on it. Rick scraped a sample into a pan, carried it outside, and watched it quietly while the crew watched. When the gold meter spiked past normal deep channel ranges, the geologist just stared at him. This wasn't regular alluvial gold. This was high-grade, deep channel stuff. Rick didn't start jumping or yelling. He didn't wave over cameras. He just marked the wall with a stripe of orange paint and muttered under his breath. This is the channel Parker missed.